All right, man. You guys know what it is, Darren the Trucking Guy. We're on the No Bullshit podcast. I got a special guest today. I appreciate his time coming on. Tyler Watson, one of our consulting clients. I've been working with him for a little while. We'll kind of let him take it from there, man. If you wouldn't mind, tell us who you are, where you're at, and what you got going on real quick, man.
Yeah, so I'm based out of Utah, and so I'm out west, and basically, this year started our trucking company, and we've just been trying to grow it from here. So I think we, technically from the first load we did it back in April. And then from there, we've just been trying to grow ever since. So,
awesome. So not that long of a time. Like we were just talking a minute ago off camera or whatever that, when we started working, I thought it was like a year ago, but it's actually a lot less time than that. And, but anyway, so a little bit about your background, man. You're obviously a younger dude, but what did you get into before you got into or started or thinking about having the idea to get into trucking? What led up to that point also? Like, how did that happen? Where you were like, trucking, light bulb came on. Let me try that.
Yeah, for sure. So, my background literally has nothing to do with transportation or logistics. I started out doing mortgages, so I was in the mortgage space for 3-4 years. Still have my license, but basically from that experience, I started getting, really looking into starting investing in real estate and things like that. And then two, just along the same line of investing, like starting to invest in businesses. So the reason I kind of went down the rabbit hole of trucking was we were actually looking and kind of in the market to buy a business. We were going to buy a business, scale it, revamp it, whatever. And in the process of just analyzing other businesses, I started to come across like other like a lot of trucking companies. Specifically, I think the very first thing that like kind of piqued my interest is kind of like the FedEx routes, if you've ever heard of those that are for sale. But then after I just started digging into it, I was like, maybe this is one of those businesses we could just build from the ground up. And so I just kind of, like I said, dove down that rabbit hole, and we just decided, look, I think we can do this. And that's, instead of buying one, we just decided to start one. So
awesome, man. That's crazy. A lot of people just jump into it, and you guys have been at it now. You're almost going to close out your first year, and they say that the failure rate is 89% in the first year. How are you guys doing right now? What's the heartbeat over there? You guys feel like you're going to fail in the first year, or you think you're kicking ass?
No, I think we're gonna still be around. That was really my main concern, right? With as far as risk getting into the business, we did our research, and I looked at there's lots of people that fail. One, because I looked up like the top reasons, and I think the biggest one that came up was really just like financial mismanagement. Lots of guys don't know how to manage the business or the finance side, which I felt like was I guess a good thing in my space, because coming from a finance background, I've had other businesses in the past. I was like, I think I'll be able to run this, as long as I can get things. But then there's the whole compliance thing and insurance, and there's obviously risk in trucking, right? That was a really big thing. So I know I connected with you. That was one of the biggest reasons I wanted to connect with, someone like you. And that's been a super huge help, is just asking you, hey, how do you manage your safety and compliance? I have a family member who actually was a DOT inspector that I really didn't know until I kind of started getting into this. So I've been able to pick his brain, and that's been one of our top priorities, is just to stay safe and compliant, because don't want to just be taken out because a safety score gets too high or something like that. You know what I mean?
Right. That's awesome that you actually play back on that. And so let's talk about that for a quick second. And then this is kind of not on my list, but I wanted to ask it anyway. So you decided to invest in your business and invest in yourself and invest in the program, the 360 program. Not that I'm trying to upsell product or anything, but then you just said you had a family member that you found out that ended up being like a DOT officer or whatever with FMCSA, and so those two things helped. Do you, obviously you decided it was worth the money to invest and get a mentor. I'm big on mentorship. I go to all the Grant Cardone stuff, the 10X stuff. Every time I can, I just went to Break Bulk. I'm into the Tony Robbins stuff. The Wes Watson, just everything. The Alex Hormozi, I read books. I'm always doing something. So you also think like that. So how do you approach decision making, number one? But you decided to invest in yourself, and do you think that really changed your trajectory and catapulted you into a little bit further along than where you would be if you didn't have, myself or that DOT officer or family member to ask questions?
Oh yeah, 100%. So, kind of how I approach that, right, is I'm sure that we could have figured things out, right? You know what I mean? And at first, that's kind of the approach we were taking. I already figured out how to apply for my authority, all these other things, and I got to a certain point that I was like, yes, I'm figuring these things out, but it's taking me, it's taking my time, right, to be able to know, hey, what are the next steps? How to most effectively do this? And so I think when people are considering mentorship or coaching or whatever it is, I see it as almost like a shortcut, right? Like you've been in trucking. How long have you been in trucking now?
Over a decade now, 10 years,
Yeah.
man. This is
So,
coming up on my 11th. So yeah, it's a
okay.
long time to still be in the game. And everybody that I started with, just about, I would say 9.9 out of 10 of them are gone. They're no
Yeah,
longer in it or change fields or not at the level that, they were once at.
for sure. Yeah. So basically, you take me who's brand new to the industry, I see an opportunity. I want to, invest in that. But, I can either take the time and go through the pain of learning the lessons myself and everything like that, or, by paying a mentor or coach who's a decade ahead of me, who's already made all those mistakes. It's like, hey, let me get with you, teach me what you did, whatever. And it definitely, I think, is a shortcut. And so it's really like a trade-off of the time or the money. And lots of times I think just, you know, you can pay
What do
a
you think
fraction
about
of the cost of what it would cost to make the mistakes
And
yourself.
that's what I was just going to ask too. What do you think about the value? Like, I don't know what, we've changed pricing over time. I don't know what you paid at the time, maybe 600, whatever, $1,000. But what do you think about the value of the amount of money that you spent for the things that you learned that, helped you get to where you wanted to go faster?
Yeah, I mean, I thought the value was there. I mean, from the first call. I mean, I was kind of expecting, I don't know. I've paid for other coaching things, and usually it ends up being where it's either like mediocre or you're kind of disappointed with it, right? Or you
Right.
like get tons of value, right?
Yeah, there's a
And I
lot of
felt like
that. I think you're exactly right. It goes one of two ways. You're like, I actually just bought one and I paid a lot of money for it. And I was like, fuck, man, this is not what I thought it was. It's not, it sucks, and I'm like, whatever. I'm not going to blast the person or put him out there, but I'm like, man, he did not, I know more than him, basically. You know what I mean? And I'm always looking to level up in any field I can. And I'm just like, man, I thought it was going to be more, So it's one of those YouTube things you fall into and it's not what it was, or you get one and you're like, mind blown, like this is way more value than what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, for sure. And for me, and I mean, we still text back and forth. I mean, I send you my questions, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like you still text me back. But like I think we hopped on the phone, and I think that first time we were on the phone for like 2 hours, 3 hours maybe. And I was
Right.
just firing question after question, and you were just like, I didn't feel like you were holding anything back or not giving me any of the secrets. You're like, yeah, do this, do that, and you should be able to do this. And so by doing that and paying for that, it was 100% worth it. I would have paid it probably 2 times over. And
So when we first started
just
working together, you guys didn't even have your authority yet, right? Like when we like first call, you guys were just implementing that or launching that.
yeah, I think we're at the point. So I had applied for the authority. I think I'd gotten like BOC3 stuff out of the way. I think the one thing that was, I think I was at the insurance step, right, of where I needed to activate my insurance to activate the authority. And
Okay.
then because I was going to be doing that and putting money, down on the insurance and everything like that, I wanted to kind of have, I wanted to start kind of recruiting guys immediately after that, so that, I'm not just paying insurance, every single month for nothing. So just to keep my authority active. So I think when we connected, that's kind of where we were at. Just wanted to get that last step of activating the authority, and then, hey, how do we actually add guys and scale this?
Yeah. So you said, well, off camera, it was like March that we started working, and that's been about 7 months ago. You started no trucks, no authority, and in that amount of time we just talked, and you said you're up to like 4 trucks now or something.
Yeah, right now I have 5 guys that are on the road. And we actually scaled up even a few more than that. And obviously, with where the market's kind of at, we actually lost a couple guys, and for other personal reasons as well. But we're about 5 right now. But I think that's good. Basically, I really feel like we could have recruited and gone up to even 10, but I think that the biggest thing over the last month or two that I've learned is that I need to come back and we need to refine our product even more. For example, by getting direct customers and things, like not relying off the load board, create an even better experience and product
Right.
for the owner operators we're bringing on. Before, because I don't want to just scale a crappy product. And I don't think our product's crappy. I think it's awesome. I have guys that are super happy with us.
Right.
But like in my mind, I'm always trying to make it better. Right. And so I'm like,
Right.
this is good, but it could be better. And I want to make the product better before, and then once it's like people come on with me, right, and they're like, holy cow, I've never been at a place that's this good. Like, I want to stay with you forever. At that point, I want to take it, to the 10, 15, 20 trucks, whatever it is. So
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. And that we were talking about that the other day on a call. I was just like, yeah, we've got to, you got to go to the point, to the horse's mouth, basically, or to the well, and get it, because at the end of the day, the brokers are keeping, and from my standpoint, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, in some cases, 50% margin. Then you're knocking the owner operator in the head at another 15, 20, 25, 30%, however much you're charging lease on fee and stuff. So, you take 100% and you're knocking at 50%, and then they have expenses and they're only making 50% of the pie, Plus, we were talking about the most brokers are not giving a fuel surcharge, and that's not a pass through that I think should be really required by law. But, and that we have to, get in there and fix that the majority of the time we can. So that's awesome, man. I'm glad to see you kicking ass still in the game. I've got some clients that didn't do things I told them to do and went and bought trucks and things, and it didn't work out for them, but you're still here, and in such a short amount of time doing some pretty big things, man. Could you give us a quick win, like a memorable success thing that happened throughout the journey that you remember, just recall, that's like a memorable, like, oh, this was a big win, we just did good. Was that like, it can be first owner operator, it could be, fifth, whatever, it could be whatever.
Yeah, I mean, thinking back, I think like one of the things that, I don't know, for some reason, I just always think of this at the very beginning. I just remember, basically getting my first owner operator, and when he texted me the pictures with like our decal and the USDOT numbers, everything on his truck, like he sent me that picture, and I was just like, that's awesome. Like, I just remember like that very first guy, he sent me the picture, and I was like, holy cow, like this is real. He's going to get on the road, and like this is now going to be a valid, like all this work that we put into it's now we're going to have someone on the road. It's actually going to start producing, what we want it to produce and everything. So that was like, for me, even thinking back, like, and adding, we've gone up, multiple trucks from them, but that just getting that text from that very first guy, I just remember was pretty memorable at the very beginning.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like and to me too, that was a thing, like, cause when I first started, I bought trucks. And so I was proud leaving off the lot with the truck and all excited and getting it loaded up. So, I can think about that too. But then when I switched to the owner operator model, I remember that first guy and having the logos on there and being like, oh snap, this is real. This is scalable. And this is helping people because those guys need somewhere to go. And maybe they don't have our skill set or our ability right now, or maybe they will in the future. I helped a lot of guys go from working with me, owner operator, to building their own business. In fact, my very first ever owner operator that worked with me for like 7.5 years, I helped him go from a bad situation upside down, backwards, stuck, out of fuel, stranded in Montana with a load on from another company, 4 or 5 payments behind on the truck and trailer, to ahead, paying that truck and trailer off, buy a hot shot, and then buying a semi, and then starting his own company. So, I mean, there's a lot of levels, and you can really help people. And that's one of the things I love doing. But that's so funny because everybody says that. They're like, as soon as I seen the logos on the truck and like we're about to get a load, it's like, oh, snap, this is real. This actually is happening right now. You think it's one of those like too good to be true, get rich quick scam things. And then you're like, no, we can do business. We can really do business,
Yeah.
Okay. So we were talking the other day. I actually keep referencing back to you because not all of my clients are like you that think about, listening to audiobooks and podcasts and different things. They're kind of like, they found me on YouTube and they're not big into the motivation or the self-development. But we were talking about, like Alex Hormozi and all these different things. Could you recommend any books, resources, or influential people or someone that motivates you or books or any information that you find or use in your, business mind?
Yeah, for sure. I would say the top, if I could give maybe 3 recommendations of books, right? 100% what we were talking about the other day, Alex Hormozi, his books that he's been putting out, $100 million offers and $100 million leads that just came out. I mean, those books right there, as far as business goes, I think they're super simple to understand. It's all the information he has in there, super tactical to where you can create a business and an offer that, like he says, people feel stupid saying no to, and then how to actually go get leads and everything. And that's been a lot like what I was referencing earlier as far as like, making our product better. That's him. Like I want to have, I don't just want to be the same as some of these other companies out here, right? Who are still good. Like we pay our drivers on time and like we never have some of those issues that some owner ops come to me and they're like, yeah, this guy's not paying me or whatever. Like we don't have any of those issues. We run a good business, but now it's like, what can we make to make this a great business? And so usually I'm taking kind of Alex's frameworks and things and trying to apply those. So as far as business goes, those are the 2 that I'd recommend. And then just as far as like, I don't know, life in general, Atomic Habits, if you've ever read that one, that is an awesome one. It's just, you learn how to build habits in your life. And that, that you stay around. And I think that's not only the principles that he talks about aren't only applicable to business, but, life in general, whether they're physical goals, social goals, business goals, spiritual goals, whatever it is that you're wanting to work on. He kind of gives you the frameworks to make awesome habits and make them stay. So those would be like the 3 books I'd recommend for sure.
Awesome. Well, I haven't heard of that one, but I'm going to go look it up. I'm always like, man, whoever has a good one, man, where's the gold at? I'm going to go get that added to my Audible list right now.
Yeah.
So another one, how do you stay motivated, man? What motivates you personally? Let's kind of, dive into who Tyler is, but how do you stay motivated to want to do this stuff? Like what makes you want to be an entrepreneur? What makes you want to do, think outside the box? I was listening to a ClickFunnels thing last night, actually. I'm looking into that pretty heavily. And they were just like, 99% of people don't have the brain capacity or the willpower or just the fortitude to be an entrepreneur. So what makes you want to do that? What, where do you find motivation or pull from?
Yeah. I don't know if it's one thing. I mean, a huge thing, right, is just, being an entrepreneur. I've always liked business ever since I was like literally like a teenager. I'd have like business ideas or, putting together a lawn care business, mowing lawns for people down the street, whatever it was. Like I've always like had just a general interest and like in business. And so like, honestly, like building this up and everything is to me, like obviously there's things in the day-to-day that sometimes aren't fun, or when you're dealing with problems and in the thick of it can't be fun. But overall, like building a business and seeing something that you're building and like it's growing, like I think that that's exciting to me, you know what I mean? So there's that. But then the biggest motivation, I have a family, a wife and a little boy. And, they're the ones that kind of motivate me to go out and, I want to provide them with an amazing life. And I think that through entrepreneurship and owning businesses and things like that, that I can make that possible for them. So
awesome, man. I love that. What are some misconceptions or myths right now that you kind of see going on? I mean, one of the big ones that I've been talking to a lot of my clients, or even any of the listeners or anybody that comes on, I had Hotshot Benny on yesterday, and we were talking about, there's money in the industry, and then a lot of people say there's not. The market's terrible. Everything on, all the articles, freight waves everywhere is, is a dim look, a dim outlook, right? And then also the things you've learned with me and stuff like that. And I have people ask me all the time, what about this? And I'm like, oh, that's all BS. That's not how that really happens at this level or that. We were talking about that the other day, I think, actually, on our call, how when I talk about the math or what's really happening at that level, the 10, 15, 20 trucks, you already seeing that. And, you see what it takes and the back office now that you've grown to that level. So you're like, no, that's not true. That's a myth. That's not impossible. That's not how that really happens. So now that you're on the other side, you've seen it, you've been successful. What are some myths or misconceptions that you could debunk real quick?
Yeah, I mean, basically, one you just mentioned, sometimes I think like in these Facebook groups and everything, I feel like they can be super negative about the industry, and 100%, it's definitely lower than, what people were experiencing just a couple of years ago. Right. And I think that's what people are comparing it to, like the whole after COVID boom. Right. And then all of a sudden we kind of go into this recessionary phase. And people say, you can't make money in it or whatever, which obviously isn't true, because there's, thousands of whatever truckers that are on the road. I think the biggest thing is, as far as that's concerned, on making money in the industry as a driver, for example, is, and I think we touched on this in the call the other day too, is, I think a lot of people think that this is kind of a get rich quick scheme type thing. And some drivers are like, oh, I'm going to go buy this truck. And they go buy the fanciest truck and the sweetest trailer and all the bells and whistles. And they get super over leveraged, thinking, that they're going to be making, 12,000 a week in their hotshot truck. You know what I mean? And then, obviously the industry is not at that point right now. And so because they get over leveraged, I think that it can cause them to fail. Right. But I think if you take a more approach and you're very, there's still money to be made in this industry, good money to be made. You just have to, I think, from going back to kind of that financial management, you just need to kind of know your numbers before you dive in. Like, realistically, what am I going to earn? What are my fixed variable expenses? Getting that all down so it like the back of your hand. So hey, like, as long as I make this amount a week, I can pay these expenses. I'm going to pocket this amount. You know what I mean? So
yeah, that like we were talking about that the other day, and that's perfect. So like, even on our talk the other day, what are your thoughts on, like, when I said, hey, I've had, over 300 people now leased on over the years, probably more than that. I haven't really counted it in a while, but every single one of them, it seems like at some point, and it's usually earlier in the stage, so they work with me for a while, and they kind of like, oh, okay, this is how things go. But they're like, I'm not making enough money. I'm not making enough money. And I've had guys making 10 grand a week every week say they're not making enough money. Right. And so we were talking about this. I said, you kind of have to be, from a owner standpoint, you have to be a financial planner for these people, or like an educator, to help them and sit down with them and be like, okay, for instance, one of my guys, he had 3 daughters in college. He had, all of them, paying cell phone on all of them, paying car payments on all of them, paying college on all of them, giving them money every week, $100, $200 to eat on campus and things like that. We were talking about this. The wife drove a Mercedes. They just bought a nice house. His mortgage was like $3,000 or $4,000 a month, in Florida and stuff. Plus he had all his expenses. And I was saying, and I was explaining it to you because you had the same problem. You had a couple guys saying, I'm not making enough money. I'm not making enough money. And you're like, but they're doing good revenue. They're doing everything else that all the other guys are doing. I don't understand. Like, why are they not profitable? And I said, well, you got to sit down and look at, everybody comes into the game differently, with being leveraged differently as far as, how much is their truck payment? How much is their trailer payment? How much did they put down? Did they own or FIRE? Did they get 28% interest, right? Is it like, are they paying $2,000 a month for their truck, or did they put money down and are paying $800 a month on their truck? And that makes a huge difference if they had good credit and put money down and came into it, with on good level ground, or if they're bleeding this thing out and they set it up all wrong. And you were like, yeah, I never really thought about that. And so do you think that's going to help you now moving forward, like sitting and talking with these guys and writing it out and being like, look, this is, no matter how much money you make, you're not going to make enough money ever doing trucking, because you have a lifestyle built on needing, $15,000 a month in profit, or whatever. And it's just not feasible when you take this much time off or you're set up like this. Do you think that that's going to help you moving forward? Like looking at these guys and telling them, hey, you got to almost coach them in a way of what it takes to do this and how much you can maximize and make.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I actually just brought on a guy a couple weeks ago. And that was one of the things that I think I brought up. I just like, when you first get started, I feel like when I first got was bringing on drivers and things like that, right? You're kind of excited. I wasn't bringing on bad drivers as far as like they had tons of things on their MVR or anything like that. But like, I wasn't really vetting for like, hey, how are you coming into this? Do you have a $2,000 truck note and $1,000, trailer, whatever it is. And so actually when I just brought on and I've kind of had this conversation with the last couple of guys that have been interested, I'm all about just being super transparent and candid. I'm like, hey, this is how much we're averaging per week on the earnings. And lots of times people will be like, yeah, that's great. But I wasn't really asking people before, like, hey, do you want to look at, have you calculated how much all your fixed and variable costs are? So this last time I was like, all right, just so you know, this is like, if you didn't know, trucking is sort of in a recessionary phase right now, right? So rates aren't as good as they were a year or two ago. So these are the actual numbers of like gross earnings that you should be making per week. That being said, you need to take this and have you looked at your, fixed cost, variable cost, all that stuff that we just mentioned. I'm not going to dive back into that, but right. I guess I've been a little bit more, that's part of my vetting process, right? When someone comes on, it's not just, hey, are they a good driver, MVR? Hey, let's take a moment to talk about, are your finances in a good place? Do you have some in savings so that if you on your first load, heaven forbid you break down, you're going to have enough money to go get yourself off the side of the road. You know what I mean? Are you financially prepared for this as much as you have the equipment and the driving experience and everything prepared for this? Because again, going back to what I said at the very beginning, and that statistic of 89% of trucking companies fail in the first year, I think it's, because of the financial portion of it and not managing the finances properly. I think that's a huge thing. So that's now becoming and will probably continue to be a big part of how we vet guys coming on now, because, if you're going to come on and be with me for, a month and a half, 2 months, and then leave, that I want people who want to come on, be with a great company and stay with me for a long time. You know what I mean? So we're kind of being a little bit more selective that way. Anyways, I know that was a long-winded answer to your question. Sorry about that.
No, it's good. And that's, and we were talking about the other day, LTV, and part of the, I'm not going to give too much away, but part of the consulting 360 program is I give you a lease on script, right? I know you've seen that in the package, and it's what to say when these people call you and say, hey, I want to lease on, I'm interested. And what questions to ask them also, because you can't just say, oh yeah, I want to lease you on, done. Okay, sign here, whatever, let's go. You got to ask them the right questions. And I talk about this with you and all my clients in the call is, why are we leasing this guy on? Let's ask him if the program, if he's on a program and he's been in it for a year or whatever, 6 months, and the program is similar to us, and he thinks that it's going to be grass greener on their side, don't bring that guy on under false pretenses. Tell him look, you're just making a switch. Maybe you don't like that person or company personally, but everything that they do over there is going to be the same over here. And the reason why you got to worry about that is because I have a lot of clients out there now. And you might be competing against one of my other students or whatever, and say, you know, if the program's the same and you're both legal, moral, ethical business, and they're thinking yours is going to be better than theirs, but it's the same thing, then they're going to be like, you know, they're going to come on, and in a month or whatever, they're just going to be looking for the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So you're wasting time. We were talking about LTV the other day, you know, lifetime value of these owner operators or drivers. How can we get the maximum amount out of them while we got them in partnership and friendship and whatever? And that's kind of a big part of it, is coming in and being 100% transparent. Like I've, you know, told you in the same way I am, this is what it is. And, you know, you might find a guy who's like, look, you know, the program's the same over there. You just don't like trucking. You know, it's going to be the same here. Anywhere else you go, the things that you don't like are about the industry and the money in general or whatever. And you just don't like the, you know, trucking, period. You know, it's never going to work no matter where you go. You go to the biggest, best company that's going to, you know, kiss your ass all day and give you, you know, mileage bonuses and presents every year and gift cards or whatever. And it's still not going to change anything. But then we also talk about, okay, that conversation is important. And those questions that I give you are important because, you know, it might be something that they're in, you know, they're not happy with the money. They're not getting paid right. You're helping them out of a bad situation, or they're just getting started, have nowhere to go. And you can give them a blueprint of like, this is what it's supposed to look like. This is how it's supposed to sound. This is what you should be looking for to be set up for success. And those questions are important, you know, is setting them up for success to succeed so that you can succeed in your business, you know? So two things, and then we'll hop off. I know you got to, you know, you're busy, man. You got to get back to work and doing what you're doing, man, running a company and stuff with 5 trucks. But what advice would you give someone getting into the industry right now, or who's considering getting into the industry? Like what would you tell somebody, you know, quick two little things, tips or whatever, be like, hey, you know, you're getting in, this is what you should do.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you're brand new, like I was, right, that, you know, didn't really have any transportation, trucking, you know, background, or I mean, even if you have, maybe you're a driver and you're starting your own business as an owner operator and getting your own authority, whatever it is, definitely, I would definitely, again, like, can't recommend Aaron and his consulting enough. That like helped me literally go from 0 trucks to 5. I think we went from like 0 to 5 in less than like 2 months or whatever, because of the things that we were able to implement. But not only that, is just because maybe if you are a driver or whatever getting into this, just because you know how to run the day-to-day as far as, you know, going, picking up loads, strapping them down, whatever, you know, that side of things. I think the biggest thing, again, looking at the statistics, you need to know how to run your finances. You need to know how to run a business. It's more than just get a rate con, go pick this up, drop it off, hope, you know, factor the load, get paid. Make sure to learn the business side of things and to know how to, you know, manage your finances so that you aren't one of those 89%, right? You want to be in that 11% that survive, and, you know, not just survive, but then thrive going forward. So if you're just getting in, you know, if you don't have that experience already, find someone that will be able to teach it, or, you know, teach you those skills, because they're going to pay off by investing in them. So.
Super, man. Super. So yeah, man, this has been great. Again, I appreciate you coming on, man. And I hope that you had a good time, and I'll come back again and be a frequent guest of the show. We're going to do a lot more of these. So we want to see you grow, man, along the journey. I can't wait. I hope you make it to as big as you guys want to get, you know, if that's 10, 15, 20 units, you know, getting into heavy haul, getting into wherever, you know, reefer, whatever you want to do, specialized. But that's awesome. So a portion of your or the majority of what you've been going after is like hot shots, right? And you're leveling up into right now you're going into the semi game, right? You've got guys that are doing that, and you're bringing on some semis and talking to guys, and you've got one guy that's upgrading or whatever to a semi from a hot shot. So that's awesome, man. It just, you know, I love hearing it. I really do love when the stuff works, and it's, you know, confirmation of, hey, you know, I'm not an idiot and I can help other people do what I'm doing as well. So, but yeah, again, I appreciate you coming on the show, man. And you know, one last thing. So you would recommend working with the trucking guy? You think that the value was there and it worked and it was worth, you know, taking the time out of your day to do it?
Yeah, for sure. I'd recommend anyone to consult with you. Again, I mean, if you have less than a decade of experience like Aaron, it's probably worth, you know, picking his brain, you know, and paying for some time with him to say, you know, hey, help me out. And, even, whether you're new like me, maybe you have a trucking company for a year and you're dealing with other issues. I think it's just having resources and people to lean on that have more experience are going to help you, continue to grow and like you want. So for sure.
That's awesome, man. 0 to 5 trucks in like 2 months. Now, granted, that's not going to be everybody's results because you definitely are an exceptional person. I think you've got a good business acumen. You're intellectually, articulate and
I
things
don't
like
know
that
about that,
not
but
everybody I work with has, to be honest. So, I'm only bringing on some of the people on the podcast that have done well, and it has to be because they wanted it and had the ambition to do it, So that's awesome, man. Being a young kid, props to you. Keep doing it for your family, man. I love to see it. And again, thank you for coming on, brother.
no, thanks for having me. It's been great.
We'll do it again, man. Thanks.